Canada is sending Ukraine 80,000 rockets from the Cold War. If you're in the States, Canada doesn't often get the credit it deserves for being a key security partner and close friend of free people everywhere. Instead, many Americans simply blame those polite, hockey-playing, moose-loving, free healthcare-having people for all of our cold weather in the winter, as if there were some diabolical Mountie plan to funnel Arctic air to lower latitudes. Hey friends, Wes here, veteran, military analyst, and banned from Winnipeg for life. Canada has been in the news a lot lately. When Donald Trump jokes about making Canada the 51st US state, which he's done repeatedly in the last 2 weeks, he's not joking. He's putting the idea out there to gauge whether there's any support for annexing Canada either within his base or within Canada itself. I can't even believe I'm talking about this. So to my Canadian viewers who may be watching me from up north, I apologize for what's about to happen. I mean, the coming trade war and possible annexation of your country. The reality is that Canada is a valuable member of the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance and has been ideologically aligned with US principles for well over 2 centuries. So might as well invade them, I guess, right? Okay, so what's this about 80,000 Canadian rockets heading to Ukraine? Well, it played out like this. Last year, Canada's Department of National Defense was considering the possibility of giving Ukraine 83,303 CRV7 air-to-ground rockets. Canada originally signed a contract for the destruction and disposal of these aging rockets, something that would cost Canadian taxpayers millions. Then last year, conservative opposition leader Pierre Poilievre, let's go to the tape.
Directly from France to Saskatchewan. And so in France, they tend to roll the last R, Poilievre, but no one says it that way here. So Poilievre is fine.
Okay, let's just call him Pierre. Called on a bill during a debate in the House of Commons to update the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement, saying, quote, instead of making Canadians pay millions of dollars to decommission these weapons, the weapons should be given to Ukraine who can use them in the defense of sovereignty, end quote. It looks like now the decision has been made. In the coming months, the Canadian government plans to send 80,840 surplus CRV7 rocket engines and 1,300 warheads. This follows an initial shipment of 2,160 CRV7 rockets delivered earlier this year. The CRV7 rocket, known for its adaptability, can be equipped with warheads designed for a variety of targets, including buildings, tanks, and personnel. So what is the CRV7 air-to-ground rocket, and will 80,000 of them move the needle for Ukraine? The CRV7, for Canadian Rocket Vehicle 7, was one of the most potent air-to-ground attack rockets of its era when it was designed during the Cold War and manufactured by Bristol Aerospace in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Wait, Winnipeg? I'm pretty sure I'm banned from Winnipeg for life. I was there for work in 2011 and I stopped off at a bar to play some darts with my Canadian coworkers, and I'm bad at darts, okay? On one of my turns, I missed the dartboard completely and hit a Winnipeg Jets flag that was hanging on the wall. And the music stops, the whole bar was silent, and everybody's looking at me. And I'm like, okay, so this is how my story ends. Killed in a bar fight in Winnipeg, the Brisbane of Canada. Fantastic. Everyone thinks Canadians are polite, until they're not. Anyways, the CRV7 was still in use with allies throughout the Afghan war. It made its grand appearance in the 1970s as the first rocket with enough energy to penetrate typical Warsaw Pact aircraft hangars. It's worth mentioning that these rockets are dumb as opposed to smart or guided munitions. This means they need to be aimed, so if they're being fired from, say, an attack helicopter, the nose of the helicopter will need to be pointed toward the target. Compared to the US Mark 40 FFAR Mighty Mouse rockets, the CRV7 replaced the higher energy fuel and newer fuselage design led to a longer and much flatter trajectory, with twice the energy on impact. This, in turn, made them more accurate to fire than earlier American versions. Plus, they had a longer range of over 4,000 meters. Firing unguided rockets is something of an art, requiring a deft hand at the controls of the aircraft. These dumb rockets are normally spin stabilized, like a rifle bullet. The spin is imparted by small fins at the rear of the rocket body that flip out into the airstream once the rocket leaves the launch tube. But these fins take a short time to open, and more time to start the rocket spinning. During this period, the rockets can drift significantly from their original aim point. The CRV7 solved this problem by adding small vanes projecting into the rocket exhaust to start the rocket spinning before it leaves the launch tube, greatly increasing accuracy. Clever. The warhead is the US M151 High Explosive Point Detonating, or HEPD, fired 10-pound, 4.5-kilogram high explosive shell. Bristol followed this with the 16-pound, 7.3-kilogram WDU-5001B anti-bunkerette round, a semi-armor piercing, high explosive incendiary round designed for use against reinforced concrete buildings. But due to the age and condition of these particular rockets, Canada has deemed it safer to send only the engines and a limited number of warheads. These engines could potentially be rearmed with new warheads at facilities in Ukraine or other European countries, extending their operational utility. In addition to the rockets, Canada will provide 960 C6 machine guns, 10,500 9mm pistols, and decommissioned armored vehicles, including 29 M113 battle taxis and 64 Coyote LAVs. While these vehicles are no longer in service with the Canadian Armed Forces, they could be refurbished for deployment by Ukraine's military. So how useful might these be if Ukraine can't get attack helicopters to the front lines without getting shot down by Russian air defenses? Well, here's where it gets interesting. An upgraded version of the CRV, the CRV-PG, PG stands for Precision Guided, was developed for Special Forces use and fired from a single tube mounted on a 6x6 truck. In use, the weapon would be driven into the field and fired from behind cover, aiming at a laser-designated location, from a forward team showing that, in practice, these weapons can be fired from the ground. That changes the equation significantly in Ukraine. If Ukraine can retrofit these 80K rockets for ground use, it could aid them in frontline combat far more than these rockets would be helpful if they were restricted to be fired from the air. Indeed, in an interview with Canada's Global News, Ukrainian General Budanov recently said, quote, "The CRV-7s would be used both in Ukrainian attack helicopters and ground launchers to target Russian tanks and artillery," end quote. Even if only 10% of the Canadian rockets are functional and contain warheads, that still gives Ukraine a windfall of over 8,000 munitions. The rest could be stripped for drone parts for Ukraine's increasing drone army. Canada is currently testing the rockets to see if they're suitable for air transport. After all, they are decades old and rocket propellant tends to become unstable over time. On the other hand, these rockets use a solid fuel source, which means that as long as they are stored properly, the fuel should be both stable and usable. There's also the minor issue of Canada breaking the contract with the private company they hired to destroy and dispose of the rockets. But this seems like something that could be negotiated. Perhaps give the company preferential terms on the next big contract if they release the government from this one. I don't know. I'm sure Crown Counsel can get creative. In light of the political dysfunction and reduced output from Canada's downstairs flatmate, Ukraine needs this Canadian shipment now more than ever. Canada has also allocated $389 million over the next 5 years to train Ukrainian pilots to operate F-16 aircraft. This might seem a little odd given that the Royal Canadian Air Force has no F-16s in its inventory. That's an issue they plan to solve with private military contractors like Top Aces, which owns a fleet of demilitarized F-16s. I think this is a great use of Cold War-era weapons that were just going to be destroyed anyways. But I can't shake the feeling that it feels like we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here to get Ukraine the weapons it needs to defend itself. No offense, Canada. Meanwhile, Russia has a seemingly endless supply of munitions from its allies in North Korea and China. Still, this is a step in the right direction, so I can't complain. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Please subscribe if you're not already. My kids got me this mug for Christmas. Can we zoom in a little here? Yep, kind of a big deal on YouTube. It's an inside joke because I'm super humble in real life, and YouTube forces you to sell yourself if you want to grow, which could make some people really uncomfortable. Not me. But if I get a boost in subscribers, I'll tell them it was a lucky mug that did it, along with my awesome viewers who hate authoritarians as much as I do, especially American ones. Anyways, stay frosty, stay safe. Oh Canada, glory to Ukraine, Slava Ukraini.